I welcome you all to the module 4 of the course titled Applied Positive Psychology. So the module 4 is titled as Mindfulness and Flow. So basically in this module we'll be talking about two major constructs of positive psychology, which are mindfulness and flow. Today's lecture will be more specifically, it will deal with the concept of mindfulness, and we'll be talking mostly the concept of mindfulness, various mechanisms associated with it, benefits associated with it, and some of the practical aspects in terms of how to practice it. So this is lecture number 10 overall and the first lecture of the module 4. So before we talk about today's lecture, let me give you a brief recap of the last lecture, that is lecture number 9, which was part of module 3. So in the lecture number 9, we talked about the concept of hope, and we discussed how this concept is different from the concept of optimism. We also discussed the concept of Charles Snyder's hope theory. We discussed the various components of hope theory as proposed by Charles Snyder, and how different factors influences hope in terms of achieving goals and so on. We also discussed different factors which predicts hope, which influences hope, and at the end we discussed various research-based tools which can be included or in terms of practice, in terms of interventions to enhance hope in our life. So these are some of the things that we discussed in the last lecture. In today's lecture we'll be talking about the concept of mindfulness, what are its roots and various components of mindfulness. We'll be speaking on therapeutic effects of mindfulness in terms of what are the benefits associated with mindfulness. We'll be also talking about how can we deal with our thoughts mindfully, and we'll also talk about a little bit about how mindfulness is related to emotion regulations and other benefits, and at the end we'll be talking about how to practice mindfulness in certain so I'll be giving you some of the practical aspects to it. So let's start today's lecture. So the concept of mindfulness is basically it's derived from a Buddhist practice of meditation. So it's a type of meditation that involves opening up or becoming more alert to the continuous passing stream of thoughts, images, emotions, sensations without identifying oneself with them. So it's a broad definition. We'll be speaking more specific aspects to this definition. So it's more about, it's a practice of meditation. It's a type of meditation that involves opening up. You become open up in terms of what you notice in the present moment, or you become more alert to the conscious passing stream of thoughts, whatever is happening in the present moment, whatever thoughts coming, whatever images, whatever emotions, sensations that are happening, you just become conscious without identifying with them in the present moment. So that's the kind of state that one has to maintain in the practice of mindfulness. So we'll be looking at the different aspects to it. So broadly, this is what mindfulness talks about. It's a type of meditative practice. Now when we talk about mindfulness, the opposite is mindlessness, means basically when you are not mindful, you are mindless in that sense, the term is used. These are some of the examples. So mindfulness is becoming more conscious of the present moment and whatever you are doing. On the other hand, mindlessness as a concept is more associated with when you are not present and conscious of things that you are doing. For example, it may include things like walking into a room and forgetting why, rushing through activities without being attentive to them, breaking or spilling things because of carelessness, inattention, or thinking something else, snacking without being aware of eating, not noticing changes in your surrounding. These are some of the examples where sometimes we get too much absorbed in our thought processes that we don't notice whatever is happening in the present moment. These are all examples of mindlessness, that at that moment we are not mindful. So this is just a few examples that shows when you get too much caught up in the thought processes and too much of ruminative thought, we become mindlessness state emerges out of it, and these are some of the examples of that. Now the concept of mindfulness we'll be talking more detail about. Before that, just let me tell you that it's a very popular concept in terms of both practice, the community who practices mindfulness, and the research field also. A lot of researchers who do research in the field of mindfulness. So it has gained a lot of popularity recently. So if you see why this is popularity, some of the indications of this are here. So recently, in a bibliometric analysis of publication, some researchers reported that between 1966 and 2021, a total of 16,581 research articles focusing on mindfulness were discovered. So if you see this few decades from the 66 to 2021, about more than 16,000 publications were reported in the journals about mindfulness. This number of publication has shown a significant exponential increase after 2006. So that shows somewhere around 2005 and 6, this concept became much more popular, and the research community actually, in terms of research output, the field has really exponentially grown in that direction. So notably, nearly half of this publication were related to psychology, while approximately 1/5 were associated with the field of psychiatry. So most of this research are coming from the field of psychology and its allied disciplines. Now, the mindfulness has also been integrated into various clinical practices in terms of various therapies and intervention techniques. Some of these examples are here. So if you see all these therapeutic techniques, where these are formally used as therapies, formal strategies of therapies, they all include mindfulness as a component in all these therapies. Examples include mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which is one of the very popular program which helps people to deal with stress and other problems of their life using mindfulness. It's a long program where one has to spend certain days with certain training and so on. Other program include mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. So this is a proper cognitive therapy where mindfulness is added to it. There is acceptance and commitment therapy, also includes elements of mindfulness. Dialectical behavioral therapy also includes elements of mindfulness. Mindfulness-based eating awareness training also is a very specific module that focuses on related to issues related to eating and so on, where mindfulness is included as a therapy. So a lot of these therapies actually are directly including mindfulness as a part of therapeutic techniques and so on. Now, what are the roots of mindfulness? From where this whole concept of mindfulness emerges? Let us look into some of the historical roots. So mindfulness has its roots in ancient Eastern Buddhist philosophy, mostly which is 2,500 years old. So this whole concept of mindfulness actually comes from the Buddhist philosophy, where this was included as a practice, where the monks and other people in the practicing people in the Buddhist tradition, they used to practice something called as a mindfulness. They had other words for it, like vipassana and so on. Now, Professor Kabat-Zinn and his colleagues at the University of Massachusetts introduced mindfulness to the Western world. Now, one of the person who has contributed a lot in this field is Professor Kabat-Zinn, who actually himself practiced for long duration the mindfulness practices with Buddhist monks and so on. And then when he came back, he was in a more secular context. He has designed mindfulness for secular context so that it can be used by normal population and so on. And it became quite popular after that. And he himself received extensive training in mindfulness from teachers of various Buddhist traditions. He secularized and adopted the practice to suit the Western mindset. So he kind of changed a little bit in terms of certain aspects of the practice. Obviously, one cannot do the practices which are designed for monks and so on. So he made the important aspects of the mindfulness and took it in a secular context, and so that it can be practiced by all people, especially in the Western context, mindset-oriented people who can practice it and so on. So here is the photograph of Kabat-Zinn. So his effort resulted in the creation of first formalized mindfulness-based intervention known as mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which was one of the first program which included mindfulness in the intervention and therapies, which is called as a mindfulness-based stress reduction program. which is very popular, and it can be seen in various hospitals and so on in the Western countries, where one can take practices of mindfulness through this program for stress management and other things. Now let us look into the concept of mindfulness a little bit more. We have already given a broad definition. Let us look into the definitions of mindfulness and what it is more specifically. So Professor Kabat-Zinn, as we already discussed, he the first academician to introduce and popularize this concept in the academic and research circle. So because of his effort and his continuous promotion of mindfulness, people in the academic circle actually got interested into this concept, and a lot of research went into this whole concept of mindfulness. He is also the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction program that we have already discussed. So he defined mindfulness. So Professor Kabat-Zinn, how he defined it? He defined mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way. So the central idea in the mindfulness is about paying attention. But how do you pay attention? What is the way of paying that attention is what determines mindfulness. So paying attention in a particular way means on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So he proposed certain concepts associated with the mindfulness. So basically mindfulness is about how do you pay attention. How do you pay attention? What are the qualities of that attention? One is that when you pay attention on certain purpose in the present moment, and then you pay attention non-judgmentally. So you don't judge whatever you are paying attention, you just observe them without thinking whether it is good or bad or right and wrong, without including thought processes in it, just paying attention non-judgmentally in the present moment. Remain in the moment, don't go into the past and future, just whatever is there you pay attention non-judgmentally. So this is something what this is how he defined it. So let us look into this definition little bit more details. So based on this definition, we can see certain components in the definition. Other researchers like Shapiro and colleagues proposed 3 components of mindfulness based on the definition of Kabat-Zinn. So there are 3 things that he talked about in the definition. One is on purpose. That means, so there is an intention involved in the mindfulness. You have to intend to do something. Second is paying attention. So that means attention is very important. It's the center of mindfulness. 3, in a particular way. So how do you pay attention? That is actually what is conceptualized in terms of attitude. So there are 3 components involved in mindfulness. One is intention, second is attention, and third is attitude. So there are 3 A's. So these 3 components, we'll discuss what are the 3 components. One is when we talk about mindfulness as a practice, one is intention. What is your intention? Second is how do you pay attention? And third is what is your attitude while paying attention? So let us look at these 3 components little bit more detail. The first one is intention. Now, intention is something that sets stage for all human activities. So you cannot do anything in life without having some intention. So the first thing is we intend to do something, then only we will do something. Without intention, we cannot do anything. Whatever actions that we do in our life, first we have to make an intention that I have to do this. So all human activities are preceded by intention. So there is no doubt about it. So similarly, for doing mindfulness also, you should have some intention for what is the intention behind doing this? Why you want to do mindfulness? So that intention will define the purpose of mindfulness. So people may intend to do mindfulness for various reasons, such as stress reduction, emotion regulation, self-exploration, enlightenment, etc. Intention may change from time to time. So obviously, intention may change. So people may do mindfulness for various reasons. Some people may do it just for understanding themselves better. Some may do it for stress reduction. Some may do it for emotion regulation. Some people do in the spiritual circles for enlightenment and higher achievement and so on. All this intention can be there while doing mindfulness. Accordingly, the result will come. So research indicated that outcomes of mindfulness practices correlated with the intention. So that means whatever intention you have, the result will come accordingly. So that sets the stage. So you intend to do something, so obviously your focus will be all focus will be in that direction only. Accordingly, you will get the result. For example, those who practiced for stress reduction attain better coping with the stress, and those who practiced for self-exploration attain better insights about their own self, and so on. So whatever intention, accordingly the result will come. So what is your intention while doing mindfulness will determine a lot of the outcomes. So this is one important component. We all have certain intentions, so that will determine how it will lead to different outcomes. Second and the central aspect of mindfulness is attention. It is the core of mindfulness, or for that matter any meditation practice. It is about paying attention involves observing the operations of one's moment to moment internal and external experiences, all contents of consciousness. So when we say paying attention, we are talking about attending to operations of moment to moment, whatever is happening internally, whatever is happening externally. All contents of consciousness means whatever you are able to detect in your consciousness. So mindfulness may include all these aspects. Some may be more specific to internal aspects. When you practice, sometimes your practice may be outward oriented or external stimuli and so on. So the idea is in mindfulness practices, attention has to be is at the center of it, and this attention has to be on the moment to moment experiences, whether that experience is internal or external. Here paying attention includes attending to present experiences moment to moment, here and now, by suspending all interpretation and judgment. So that is very important in the mindfulness, that you have to pay attention moment to moment in the present moment and suspend all the interpretation. When you pay attention, don't judge it, whatever you are attending to. You don't say something, don't include your thought processes or judgment processes in this whole process. You just pay attention and look at and observe whatever is there as it is. So that is something very important. That is how attention is looked at in the mindfulness. Such attention takes us out of our non-stop wandering, disturbed mind to the senses of the present moment. So the moment you become grounded in the present moment and suspend all the interpretation processes and just observe whatever is there in the present moment, this takes out from all this wandering, disturbed mind processes, because these are all because of your mind is going on with all the thought processes. You just come to your senses in the present moment and all this thing just simply vanishes. So that is what attention does in the mindfulness process. The third component of mindfulness is about attitude. What is your mental attitude you take while paying attention? So here attitude refers to the qualities of attention and how you pay attention. This is an important aspect of mindfulness practice. So mindfulness is not just about paying attention, but how do you pay attention? That was very important in the definition of mindfulness. So mindfulness also includes paying attention to our internal and external experiences without evaluation and interpretation, but with the heart of qualities such as acceptance, patience, kindness, openness, even when there are unpleasant experiences. So that is the attitude one has to take while paying attention. You have to pay attention. It can be either internal stimuli like thought processes, emotions and so on, or it could be some external stimuli like some visual sights and so on, without evaluation or interpretation. You don't interpret and evaluate, just observe it and just be in touch with the present moment the way it is. So it may also include things like when you pay attention, it could be attend with sense of acceptance. You don't judge anything, just accept whatever it is, with patience, with kindness, openness and so on. So all these are basically related to non-judgmental attitude and so on. So such qualities of attitude give us a break from non-stop resistance by trying to push away unpleasant experiences and craving for pleasant experiences. This may be called as peace and real happiness in a true sense. So this attitude of paying attention give us a break from all this non-stop resistance, because most of the time when you look at things, we resist if this is unpleasant and we crave for things which are pleasant. So that is what the nature of mind is, and so all the time this resistance creates non-stop disturbances in our mind and all this disturbed state of mind and stress and so on. So this quality of paying attention without judgment and acceptance, breaks from all this non-stop resistance and give us a real sense of peace and happiness and so on. So that is what the kind of attitude that is maintained. So these are three important qualities or aspects that are there in the definition of mindfulness. Now let us look at some of the therapeutic effects of mindfulness. Mindfulness has been studied a lot in the context of its benefits in terms of various, for physical and mental health and so on, and the productivity also and so on, and the functioning aspect of life and so on. So research on mindfulness has identified diverse benefits. Some of them are as follows. So research has shown that it is very effective for stress reduction. People who consistently practice mindfulness, it helps to reduce stress. It increases positive emotions and decreases anxiety, depression, negative emotions and so on. So it is also has been found to be linked with increased positive emotions, decrease of negative emotions, and things like depression, anxiety and so on. It also has been linked to improvements to working memory and so on. So people who practice mindfulness regularly, their memory function also increases, particularly the capacity of memory, of working memory, increases when people practice it regularly, because of too much of thought processes and disturbances also hinders our memory capacity and so on. So mindfulness in that sense improves our working memory capacity and so on. It has also been linked to relationship satisfaction and decrease in conflicts and so on, because your mind becomes much more peaceful, more accepting and so on. So that also can be reflected in the relationship, decrease in conflicts and so on. It has also been linked with increased immune functionings and physical health. So not just mental health aspects. Research also shows people who practice mindfulness regularly also increases their immune functions and other physical health parameters. And overall it improves different indicators of well-being, which includes things like emotion, life satisfaction and so on, and also different aspects, other aspects of well-being. So these are some of the findings that clearly shows that it can have a lot of benefits in terms of physical health, mental health and functioning aspects of life. Now let us see what are the mechanisms by which this whole therapeutic effect of mindfulness actually comes into existence. Why mindfulness mindfulness facilitates therapeutic or positive impact on our mind and body. What could be the possible mechanisms? So let us look at some of the possible mechanisms that are discussed in the literature. So one of the things that is talked about is reperceiving as a meta mechanisms. So it's a kind of overall the broad mechanism by which mindfulness kind of brings about all the positive changes is through a meta mechanism, broad mechanisms, where there can be many sub mechanisms. The broadest mechanism is something called as a reperceiving happens when we engage in mindfulness. Now what is reperceiving here is basically intentionally attending with openness and non-judgmentalness leads to significant shifting perspective, which we have termed as reperceiving. So this Shapiro and colleagues, they defined this particular meta mechanism as reperceiving. Basically what happens here during mindfulness processes, there is a shift in perspective happens. That when you non-judgmentally with openness and acceptance you observe something, then those things doesn't cling to you, they no longer can disturb you, especially something which is unpleasant emotions and so on. So what happens, so there is a shift happens in the perspective, how you look at things, how you look at internal stimuli and external stimuli, and this shift is what brings about all the positive changes, because other things cannot impact you much now, internal or external stimuli, simply because your relationship with those stimuli has changed through mindfulness or the way you pay attention. So that is something they defined or termed as reperceiving. Now this reperceiving means shift in perception. Basically it means there is a shift in perception that happens. Shapiro and colleagues defined reperceiving as de-identifying with conditioned judgments, shifting focus instead to direct perception of sensation in the current moment. So basically because of the way people pay attention, as we have already discussed, that it shifts their perspective and they disidentify from all these judgmental thought processes, why this is happening, and all these continuous ruminative thought processes. Simply you get detached from that, and this shift, which is called reperceiving in this context, does a lot of positive things in one's mental and external world. So this reperceiving helps us to dissociate or disidentify from the non-stop mental drama and to witness our experiences moment to moment with more clarity and objectivity. So you remain as a witness person rather than completely identified with the thought processes or whatever the perception you have. So you become a witness, you just observe without really getting interested into those whatever thoughts, processes or emotions happening. So that disidentification leads to and dissociate us from that, and that is what brings about all the positive changes. Now this reperceiving can lead to some other positive mechanisms which can lead to positive changes. Sub mechanisms, we can say reperceiving is the broadest mechanism. Other sub mechanism which leads to positive changes when one engages in mindfulness includes some of these things. So Shapiro and colleagues also they said reperceiving is a meta mechanism, means it is the broadest mechanism under which can lead to many other additional mechanisms that further contributes to the positive effect of mindfulness. Some of this, like mindfulness leads to self-regulation and self-management. Mindfulness leads to emotional and cognitive and behavioral flexibility. Mindfulness also leads to value clarification, and the fourth one, it leads to something called as exposure. So let us see all of these things in a very briefly so that we can understand how these mechanisms come into the picture. The first mechanism that they talked about is called self-regulation and self-management. So mindfulness is associated with self-regulation and self-management because one is able to regulate oneself and manage oneself much better way when they practice mindfulness, which then leads to many other positive outcomes. So mindfulness promotes self-regulation and management and other positive effects associated with it. So reperceiving facilitates greater connection with our experiences. Consequently, we have more access to experiential information and less experiential avoidance of unpleasant feelings and emotions. So because you are now, your connection with the feelings, emotions will be much different than earlier. Earlier one is to get identified, and if some negative emotion arises, then one become negative. That emotion, if anger arises, you become angry. So that is what happens when you identify with emotions. But in this case of mindfulness, you don't identify with it. An anger arises, you just observe without judging it. Then you simply disidentify with it. And this disidentification leads to better emotion regulation. Now you don't become angry when anger arises. You just observe. Then anger cannot take control of you. And after sometimes the anger will diminish and so on. So this is how you can your emotion regulation become much more effective in that sense. So it increases our degree of freedom. We can choose how to react. You are no longer identified with the content. So that degree of freedom increases. This reduces automatic, intrusive, habitual maladaptive practices. So a lot of this automatic behavior that happens, some emotion happens and people become like that immediately. Anger arises, they become angry. Whatever emotion happens, they immediately become that. Because there is no freedom. There is no freedom. Emotion is dictating your life. So what happens through mindfulness? It increases your degree of freedom. You can look from a distance that this is arising and you can choose how to react to that. So that is how it increases self-regulation and self-management. Next is mindfulness also helps us in the concept of value clarification. That means what? It helps people to identify the true values and meaning of their life. Ordinarily, we are identified and conditioned by outside societal forces which dictates our values and choices of life. Mostly when you don't have clarity in your mind, because you are all the time identified with the mind, and our mind is mostly influenced by outside world, societal forces, whatever people says we believe, or whatever we get conditioned by people's suggestions and so on. So we are not generally aware of the true values that we want internally, simply because of too much of identification with that. When we practice mindfulness, it helps us to break from that influences of external forces, and one can objectively look at our life and reflect and rediscover our true values and meaning of life. So when we're too much conditioned or influenced by outside factors, then we don't know what is our true values and what is actually given by outside world. So mindfulness helps you to clarify your ground and look at yourself more objectively, and then we identify better what is the true values that we want without external influences and so on. So in that sense, it helps you to clarify values and things that we internally want to do in our life. The third things that mindfulness does is called as cognitive, emotional, behavioral flexibility. There is a flexibility comes when people practice mindfulness. They don't become rigid in it, in that sense that they don't see other perspective. People, when they practice mindfulness, the mind becomes much more open. They can see more things. They can see other perspectives and so on. So that is called flexibility at all levels: mental level, emotional level, behavioral levels. Reperceiving increases clarity and objectivity to our moment-to-moment experiences. Consequently, our degree of freedom and choice to respond in a situation increases, either mentally, emotionally, or behaviorally. We become less and less victims of our environment, thoughts, and emotions. So, the more flexibility we have, the more we can adapt to situations more. When you look at things and see others' perspective, look at different perspectives, you can choose and find out better pathways to act and so on. We become less victims of the environment and thoughts and emotion. So all these things, flexibility has a lot of advantage in terms of adapting to situations of life and so on. The last one is how mindfulness brings about positive changes is through exposure. Now, exposure is a technique used in various therapies such as therapies for phobias and other things. In most of the phobias where people have exaggerated fear for something, let's say fear for height, fear for snakes and so on, people have extremely high level of fear for some objects. In such cases, exposure works. Slowly, if people are exposed to those things, for example, somebody is afraid of snakes or let's say height, then slowly, if they're exposed to heights in a very slow pattern wise, if you expose them slowly to different heights, small height and then little more height and little more height, if they are exposed and then they process and they slowly get adapted to those things for which they are afraid of, slowly the fear decreases. So these are like, when you get exposed to things, you process them and they're no longer disturb you too much. So what happens, the basic idea is that people get desensitized when systematically exposed to unpleasant emotions again and again. So they will slowly get desensitized. So a lot of these phobias therapy included exposure. Now similar thing happens in the case of mindfulness. When you mindfully bring your attention to whatever positive, whatever internal or external stimuli, a lot of this positive changes happens by the principle of exposure actually. In mindfulness, we connect directly with the moment-to-moment experiences, including negative emotions, and observe them without avoidance and resistance. This approach reduces our negative, maladaptive, and neurotic emotional patterns such as phobias, anxieties, and so on. So whatever inner, deeper emotional problems we have, when we observe them without identifying with them, slowly they vanish because we are directly facing them. Rather, the moment we avoid them, they get into your deeper unconscious mind and they will keep disturbing you. When you get exposed to them, slowly you observe them, face them, whatever internal emotional problems one have, like deeper anxieties, phobias, and so on, then slowly they come out from the deeper unconscious part of mind and they simply just vanish. So, but we have to maintain that non-judgmental attitude and not to react to them. So that is something what works like an exposure. And we get desensitized, and slowly those all the inner problems slowly vanishes. It takes time, but this exposure leads to decrease of a lot of these negative issues related to emotions and so on. So all these mechanisms may lead to many positive outcomes that we have discussed earlier. So why mindfulness brings about a lot of these positive changes? Some of the reasons or mechanisms or causes, these are some of the causes that we have explained. Because of these factors, probably a lot of positive changes happens when people practice mindfulness regularly. Now let us look into in terms of how actually it is done. It works with thoughts, processes particularly, and emotions and so on. Now when we talk about mindfully dealing with thoughts, so this is one important aspect of this practice, to deal with thoughts and emotions. That is where a lot of problem happens. Mindfulness can be done with external visual objects and so on also, but one of the main target is to how to deal with thought processes, because thoughts creates a lot of problems, especially when they are uncontrollable and so on. Now one thing that mindfulness takes the position that thoughts are not facts. A thought is just a thought. This is what is a lot of the reality of thoughts are like that. Most of the thoughts that we think about ourselves, about our futures and so on, these are like our just what we feel like thinking in a moment based on certain situations. They may not be fact, they are just thought. They come and they vanish. But when we take them for facts, they will influence you so much. Most of these thoughts are not facts because we just believe in them, and they will then influence and they become actuality in our life. So for example, if someone says, I am a worthless person, let's say, because something negative happened in one's life. Now this is not a factual thought. This is simply because it is stimulated by some negative thing in one's life. Now this thought is completely based on just one situations in one life. You might have done so many great things, so many good things also. So just one event cannot make you a worthless or let's say a person of diminished value and so on. But the thought can come out because of one negative thing that happens in one life. So this is not a factual thought. If you look at the evidences, there is no truth or evidence for such thoughts. This is just a thought, and if you believe in it, it will influence you accordingly. So most of these thoughts are not facts. They are mostly like thought. They are just mostly manufactured by our belief systems, and they just come and vanish. But if you cling to them, they will influence you for a long time. So in mindfulness, we don't cling to them. You just observe them, they come and go. So thoughts are helpful for practical purposes like problem solving, creativity, making plans. No doubt thoughts are very important in our life, but a lot of these thoughts may not be factual, especially when the things that we think about ourselves, our life and so on. However, thoughts can be problematic when they overwhelm us, pulling us from the present moment into clutches of worry, anxiety and rumination. Now, most of this emotional problem, worry, anxiety, rumination are associated with thoughts which may not be realistic thoughts. This may be mostly just manufactured by us, mostly fictional thoughts. But thoughts, there is no doubt that thoughts are important for solving problems, creativity in one life, making plans and so on. Practical application of thoughts, obviously that is there. But sometimes these thoughts, we kind of use them against us in terms of it creates worry, anxiety, stress and so on. So thoughts also create all these things, and thought also help us to deal with problems and so on. So practical aspects, thought is fine, but many times we need to understand where thoughts is more imaginary and creating problem in our life. So mindfulness can help us to deal with the thoughts in a very particular way. Now one thing we should understand, most of the thoughts actually cuts us from the present moment. When you too much get engaged in the thought in the mental world, you are not aware of the present moment, what is happening now. For that you have to pay attention here and now, and when we too much get caught up in the thoughts, our whole attention is there. It is no longer available in the present context. So thoughts cuts us from the present moment. We are often not in the now, on the present moment, mostly non-existent past and future. Most of the time, where do we exist? We exist either in the past or in the future, and both don't exist. Past is no longer present, future is not yet, we don't know what will happen. The only moment which is real is this present moment, and we don't really exist there. We exist in imaginary spaces of past and future. So we get cut off from the present moment, which is actually the only moment that is available. So in this moment, there is seldom problem. If you look at life, the present moment generally don't have any problem. Most of the problems are either in the past or about future. In the present moment, there is not much problem. You can act and do things. But problem happens when you think something what has happened in the past and what will happen in the future. So that future related thought and past related thoughts creates all the problems. So because our mind all the time stays there. All problems and worries are for the past and future. This is the typical situation for most of us. So in case of excessive worry, anxiety, rumination, people generally use some kind of strategies such as suppression. They try to suppress their thoughts, or they distract themselves, let's say by going to movies and whatever it is. Now such strategies generally are temporary solutions. When you want to control your thoughts, these are like temporary solutions and can have rebounding effect. Means the more you try to distract or suppress those thoughts, more they will come back. So they don't generally work productively in our life. When we want to control our thoughts, techniques like suppression, distraction, they don't really work. They only may give you very short-term relief and so on. So in that context, mindfulness is a very more healthy strategy, more long-term strategy in terms of dealing with thoughts and controlling thoughts. So how do we mindfully deal with thoughts? It includes when we observe our thoughts without attachments. You just observe, you don't say this thought should come or should not come. You don't suppress it, don't distract yourself. Just see the way it is without any judging any thoughts. Then they don't actually influence you. They just vanish, come and go. That is what happens. So there is no judgment here. You just let them pass, give less importance. You don't cling to them. All thoughts are welcome. You don't just fight with them. The moment you don't resist, thoughts lose their power. They will not be able to influence you and stick to you. They will just come and vanish. So next thought come, just observe whatever it is. When we don't judge, they don't have influence on us. The judgment makes us cling to them. We make a relationship with them when we judge about them. So mindfully dealing with thought is basically a very different approach. You don't suppress, you don't distract yourself, just observe. And this approach has been found to be very useful in terms of dealing with thoughts and emotions. So let us see in terms of practical aspects of it. How do you practice mindfulness? So this is something, we have talked about all the theoretical part to it, but how can you actually practice it? So some of the practice aspect of mindfulness taken from some of the sources which are listed here. So some of the common things, mindfulness can be practiced in so many ways, using so many stimuli, but some of the common things are here. Following practices were taken from these researchers sources, Nayak and colleagues, 2014. So almost any activity can become mindfulness practice if it includes these key elements. So mindfulness can be integrated in anything that we do in our life. So it is just an approach that you add to your activities, or it can be done as a secluded activity as a meditation practice also, or it can be included in daily activities also. But provided any activity can become mindfulness but it should have these elements. What are those elements? One is the engagement of one of the 5 senses. So senses will be engaged while you doing mindfulness practice. Focusing on your senses helps ground in the present moment. When you look at our sense organs like eyes, ears, taste, through tongue and so on, senses are always in the present moment. When you look at things, it is in the present moment. When you hear, the stimulus is in the present moment. When you taste something, it is in the present moment. Senses are always in the present moment. So when you focus on senses, you come back to the present moment. From the whole clutches of thought, you come back to the present moment. So senses are a very good way or a portal where you can anchor yourself in the present moment. So it also gives you a chance to experience the sensory input separately from thoughts and you may have about them. So you separate thoughts from actual sensory experiences. So when you eat something, what is the taste and so on, the sensory experiences you get into it, then thoughts don't influence as much, because then you are in the present moment actually experiencing what is the sense experience and so on. So one important aspect is that in a lot of these mindfulness practices, senses are engaged fully, either all senses or some of the senses. Another important thing is that in all mindfulness practice there is an anchor where you come back, which helps you to root in the present moment. So this anchor is your focus point during mindfulness practice. This is where you focus. For example, if you are being mindful of your breath, you concentrate on the physical sensation of the breathing. So many people practice mindfulness using breathing, just focus on their breathing. So whatever thought, breathing are naturally coming and going. There is an ingoing breath, there is an outgoing breath. You just observe it. So so this breath many times are used as an anchor. So whenever your mind gets distracted, you come back to your breathing. So when the moment you focus on your breath, so you are basically connecting with an sensory experiences of the breath. What is the sensation of the breath? How it is touching your nostril, how it is going to the below your belly, how it is again then coming back and so on. All this sensation you focus. So what happens? So you come back from all the thought processes to a anchor, which could be a breath, for example, is an anchor. So such as the feeling of air entering and exiting your nostrils, or the expansions and contraction of your lungs, the exact sensation isn't important as long as you stay focused on it. So this helps you to come back, or use something like breathing as an anchor which helps you to come back to the present moment. So whenever your mind distracts, you come back, use the anchor to come back. So this anchor is there in most of the mindfulness practices. Other common anchors include sounds. You can use some sounds like a bell, or the taste or a texture of a food and so on. So one can use eating as a mindfulness practice when you focus on your taste and so on. The options are nearly endless, so you can experiment with different anchors to find what works for you. But most commonly when people practice, breathing is used as a anchor, because all the time breath is going on. Other things sometimes present, sometimes absent, but breath is something which is all the time present with you. And when you focus on breathing, your mind cannot, all the thought processes actually becomes peaceful. You cannot focus on breathe and you cannot think also. Both cannot happen. So it is a very effective anchor in terms of coming back from all the thought processes and the disturbing thoughts to the present moment. Just focus on the breathing. If you focus on the breath, you cannot be in the thought processes. Both cannot coexist. So anchor is very important in the practice of mindfulness. Then while practicing, people keep returning to the anchor because mind get distracted many times while doing practice. This step is where the power of mindfulness practice lies. You are likely to be able to focus on your anchor only briefly. Generally, we cannot focus on anything for a long time. Our mind wanders and get distracted, which is normal and expected. When you notice your focus has drifted, gently bring your attention back to the anchor. So that will help you to come back. Each time you return to the anchor, you are rebuilding the skills of mindfulness awareness, strengthening your ability to stay present. Distraction is fine, but you have to rebuild it again and again, come back to the anchor, so that will help you to get focused in the present moment. So one can try creating their own mindfulness practices throughout the day, paying attention to the sensations of the soles of the feet while you walk to your car, or savoring the taste and texture of the morning coffee can turn ordinary moment into truly fulfilling mindfulness exercise. So whatever you do, you can be mindful in while doing those activities. Whether you take a cup of coffee or tea, just get into the sensations of how it tastes and so on without getting lost into thoughts. It will become a mindfulness practice. While you walk, focus on the sensation of feet and whatever you are experiencing while walking, be with those experiences. Then it will become a mindfulness practice. So all experiences, all activities can become mindfulness if you just include that attitude and attention. That said, a regular structured practice can be valuable in the beginning, because in the beginning people may not be able to do in doing things and activities. So initially structured practice is more beneficial in terms of developing this habit, and then one can do it in the daily activities. So instruction for such two common mindfulness practices I will be discussing now. More structured way, how can we do in the beginning, and then obviously it can be included in anything that one can do. First is mindful breathing. So this is like formally sitting and then you can practice it. One is the first aspect of mindful breathing is posture. So one has to sit comfortably in a relaxed and upright position. So one has to sit in a very straight position. So that is something, because we are discussing now structured formal practice. One can choose to sit on a chair or the floor. What matters is how you feel. You should feel comfortable and alert. So that is something very important. You might prefer to close your eyes to minimize distraction, but if you keep them open, let your gaze rest softly a few feet in front of you without focusing on anything in particular. So you can do this by closing eyes and opening eyes also, but then it is better to close eyes, because through eyes so many distraction comes. But if you keep opening it, then just put your gaze in front of you without looking here and there. So this is like in terms of how do you take the posture in formal practice. Then comes the stage of getting grounded. Take a moment to notice any areas of tension in your body. Relax your face and jaw. Release your shoulders and feel the weight of your body supported by the chair or the ground. So basically you get grounded in the present moment. How do you get grounded in the present moment? Just observe or focus on the different sensations in the body. So notice if there are any tension in the body, just focus different sensations throughout the body. If there are any tension in certain areas of the body, just release them. Just become relaxed and see how your body is touching the chair or ground, wherever if you are sitting. Just focus get in touch with all the sensations in the body. So just you come to the present moment, be grounded in the present moment, be with your body. From thought to body, connect with the body. Body is always in the present moment. Thoughts are always in the past and future. So connect with the body, feel the sensations. So that is called grounded. Then comes the third step called noticing your breath. Once you feel settled, bring your awareness to your breath. Just focus on breath now. Focus on sensations like the air moving in and out of your nose, the rise and fall of your lungs, or the sound of your breath. If it's hard to feel your breath, try placing your hand on your belly to sense it rising and falling as you breathe. So the next main practice is just observe your breathing. How do you observe that? Just follow the sensations of breathing. That you may feel ingoing breathing, it is touching your nostrils, there will be sensation that air will touch your nostril, then it will go, your lungs will expand, then it will stay for some time, then it will come out, again nostril, you can feel the sensation and so on. Your stomach will kind of, rise and fall. All this sensation you can observe and just be with that sensation. Just observe your breathing. It is much more easier to focus on breathing because there is a movement happening, and it is one of the easiest way to get grounded and practice mindfulness. Focus your attention and develop your attention in the present moment. So noticing your breath, focusing on the breath, focusing not in a very concentrated way, but just observe what is going on with the breathing, not like very stressful focus. Mindfulness never focuses on stressful focusing on one thing. Just observe the movement that is happening. Be open. Then mainly the practice is staying with your breath as much as possible. That is what is the practice is all about. Now that your attention is on your breath, try to keep there as long as possible. Stay relaxed when both your posture and your focus. If you feel tension or find yourself getting sleepy, gently adjust your posture and release any tightness. So obviously in such practices sleep can come and so on, so you have to adjust yourself. The more you practice slowly, you will be able to maintain your alertness for a long time and so on. If you notice your attention drifting or you are getting distracted, calmly bring back to your breathing. Come back again, slowly. You will get distracted many times, no problem in it. This is how the nature of mind is. You come back again and again. That is what is your practices. When thoughts arises, don't judge them for yourself. Simply observe them and let them pass. When thoughts arises, you may feel like some thought may come, it is a very boring thing, I am not feeling comfortable. These are all thoughts. Just observe them, they will come and pass. Your focus is pay attention to the breathing. In that process, many thoughts will come, you just observe them, don't cling to them. So remember, the true purpose of this practice is not to keep your attention on your breath without interruptions. That is not the thing that all the time you have to be there with the breathing. Distraction can happen, but to strengthen your ability to return to the focus each time it wanders. So the more you are able to return back, that is what matters more in that practice. So this is one formal practice that one can initially do to develop the capacity for mindfulness. Then one can do it in the activities like this particular activity is called mindful walking. One can do once we develop a little bit of capacity of mindfulness. So in this particular exercise, one can do something called as a mindful walking here. Here posture is stand upright, alert, yet relaxed. Distribute your weight evenly between both the feet. Let your arms rest by your sides or hold them behind your back if this feels more comfortable. The idea is you stand up and be comfortable and relax. Take a moment to feel your body supported by the ground beneath you. You may find it helpful to soften your gaze slightly downward to aid your focus. So just stand and feel the sensations in the body while you stand and how your feet touches the ground and so on. Become aware of all these things, whatever is happening in the present moment. You can softly, just gaze downward just to get focus rather than looking too much around it. So that is the posture that is required for mindful walking practice. You can choose some paths to walk. For your first mindful walking practice, consider choosing a short path about 100 feet or less, and walk back and forth along it. So take a short path and you can walk back and forth. As you become more familiar with the practice, you can explore longer and more varied paths or even incorporate mindfulness walking as you move through your daily routine. So initially for developing this, choose a very short path where there is a less distraction, and you can use that to come back and forth and so on. Once you develop habit, you can include it any kind of walking in daily life. So now how to do that? In walking, with your first steps, bring your attention to the sensations of your weight shifting on the soles of your feet. See how your feet feels while walking, how weight is moving to one feet and then another feet. Just observe all the sensations. If you are barefoot, notice the different textures of the ground. Try to maintain a steady pace. Don't run or don't do, just maintain a steady pace. Walking slightly slower than usual. So little slower walking will be helpful so that you can focus on every movement of the body, sensations in the body and so on. The idea is you stay with your body, be in the present moment and enjoy in the sense and just observe whatever sensations and is arising in that moment. So this is how you have to walk in the initially, then staying with the steps. That is the practice. As you find a rhythm, keep your attention on the sensations of your feet. Focus on the sensations on the feet as you walk. If you notice your mind drifting, gently redirect your focus back to the experiences of each step. Remember, the key to this practice is not to how long you can stay focused, but the act of noticing how your mind has wandered and kindly refocusing on it. So that is how you have to do. Main idea is not to get distracted. You can get distracted, that is a common, but are you able to bring back to the practice in the present moment as you are walking, focus on the walking and so on. So this is another practice that one can do in a more structured way initially, and then it can be included in the daily walking practice. Another simple practice that can be done on external visual world called mindful seeing. So mindfulness can be included in any sense organs. So seeing is one such exercise. It is a simple exercise requiring only a window with some kind of view. Follow this step. Step 1. Find a space at a window where there are sights to be seen outside. So you can choose one window where you can see something, some visual sights, like maybe some trees, some birds and so on, whatever it is. So through windows we can see a lot of things. So you can choose a window where there are certain sights. Step 2, look at everything there is to see. Just observe whatever is you can see or perceive. Avoid labeling and categorizing what you see outside the window. Don't say this is tree, this is bird, this is whatever it is, this is a beautiful bird, this is a ugly bird, this is a beautiful tree. Don't label anything. Just look at whatever is visible. So that is what called mindfulness seeing. You don't have to label or judge anything. Just observe in the present moment and be with whatever you are seeing. Instead of thinking bird or stop sign, try to notice the colors, patterns and textures. See how they look in terms of colors, patterns and textures. So that is more important than judging what this object is, whether it is a good object, bad object. Avoid all this labeling. Step 3, pay attention to the movement of the grass or leaves in the breeze if there are movements. Notice color, different shapes present in the small segment of the world. You can see how many shapes are there, different colors, patterns and movements. Try to see the world outside the window from the perspective of someone unfamiliar with this site. Look at them as if you have seen them for the first time. Don't judge them, label them that I know all these things, what are these things. Just observe them just like a small child will observe it as if looking at it for the first time, without any preconceptions. Just look at the colors, brightness, textures, movements in the nature through this window. Step 4, be observant but not critical. Be aware but not fixated. Just be aware. You don't have to fix on anything with the concentration and so on. Just be aware. Step 5, if you become distracted, gently pull your mind away from those thoughts and notice color, shapes again to put you back in the right frame of mind and so on. So you can do such practice for some times, whatever is available according to your schedule and so on. So this will kind of help us to get grounded in the present moment and break from the thought process, disturbing thoughts, emotions and so on. We'll be able to control thoughts and all the mental disturbances and come to a very peaceful state of mind. All these practices can be helpful in those directions. So there are many common problems that people generally face while doing these things and how to deal with them. I'll just discuss few things. Finding time for mindfulness practice can be challenging in today's busy world, but even just 10 minutes a day can make a lot of difference in terms of mental health and so on. Here are some common problems and tips for them to address. One is that people generally say, I can't stop thinking. That is why we are doing this mindfulness. Too much of thoughts and you are all the time distracted and so on. So instead of resisting thoughts, observe them. So that is the main idea. Let the thoughts come, let it, whatever it is, maybe storms of thought. That is not your task to judge it. You just observe without identifying with them. Like watching them from a distance, as if you are just sitting on a roadside and looking people coming and going. These are all strangers. You don't have any relationship with them. If you maintain that attitude, thoughts will slow down automatically because you are breaking the relationship with them. So this allows you to rest in the still space of mind. Some people also say, I feel too restless to be mindful. That is also very common. So restlessness is normal, especially in a fast-paced world. Stick with the practice and over time your body and mind will adjust and slow down and easily. For any practice, obviously it takes time. For mind and body good to get accustomed to something, so only way is to maintain that. Some people also feel too tired to be mindful. Mindfulness can also sometimes highlight initially a lot of fatigue, but people find it difficult. If tiredness persists, check your sleep habits. If boredom is causing drowsiness, try more active practices like mindful walking and so on. If you cannot sit, then do the walking practices and so on. Dealing with uncomfortable emotions, many times while doing mindfulness, many uncomfortable emotions comes up because you are facing them, you are not avoiding them. So they may come in front very strongly. Strong emotions may arise during mindfulness, and it's important not to resist them. Again, that you have to maintain that attitude of not judging them or resisting or fighting with them. You cannot own by fighting with thoughts and emotions. They will only increase. So if you maintain that detached stance or witnessing position, then they will slowly reduce. Allow them to surface without judgment, focusing on the physical sensation they create. Tightness in the chest and anxiety, just focus on them. That every emotion will have some sensation in the body. Just observe them and slowly they will vanish. If emotion obviously is too overwhelming and not able to deal with them, you can take support from technical supports and so on, like professional counselors and so on. Generally, one can deal with it if they practice it rightly. If too much of overwhelming emotion comes, obviously one can stop for that day, and obviously they can do it later and so on, and take support if necessary and so on. So these are some of the things about mindfulness. One can initially do more structured practices, and then slowly it can be integrated in everything that we do. It is more about the attitude and the attention that you pay, and it has a lot of benefits. That is what research shows. So this is a few things about mindfulness and how to practice it. So with this I stop here. Thank you.